Hey there guys, alright, today we are back with some more History Matters, and this, been a while since we've done one of their 10-minute history videos. Can't remember the last one we did, but yeah, this time we're going to be looking at the Unification of Italy, a short documentary by History Matters. Before we dive in though, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Alright. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and just dive right in.
1815 and Napoleon has been defeated. During his time as the French emperor, he had redrawn the borders of the states in Italy to look like this. After the Vienna settlement, they were changed to this, mostly to what they had been before, except that the Austrian Empire was given control over Lombardy and Venetia. The Austrians were basically given overlordship of Italy, since these states were also their allies, and only the kingdom of Piedmont-Sardinia was truly independent. So, whilst the victors of the Napoleonic
Liberals, no!
Wars could reshape borders, they couldn't destroy the liberal ideas that the French had brought with them to Italy. The most notable of these ideas being that the Italians should see themselves as a single people and dismiss any foreign intervention. Naturally, this upset the many recently restored kings of the Italian states who reacted fiercely against any calls for liberal reform, earning them the title reactionaries. The years following the Vienna settlement were troubled with unrest, with many liberal thinkers forming secret societies such as the Carbonari in the south. In 1820 and 1821, a series of revolts and coups were launched across the Italian
not a coup.
states in order to force through liberal reforms. In the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies there were two, with those in Naples calling for the introduction of a new constitution and those on Sicily demanding independence for the island. Basically no one in these revolutionary movements
No kings. Whoa, buddy. Slow down there.
Could agree on anything, and the Austrian army soon after had come down and crushed them. 1821 saw Piedmont-Sardinia plunged into chaos as well when an anti-Austrian liberal revolt broke out. King Victor Emanuel I also hated the Austrians since he wanted Lombardy, but he hated liberals more, and instead of giving in to their demands, he abdicated. The throne went to his brother, Charles Felix, who refused to give in to the revolutionaries' demands, and so nothing happened. The next decade saw continued resentment by liberals, as well as little to no economic growth, barring some industrialisation and limited investment in southern Italy by Britain. In 1830 and 31, more liberal-led revolts broke out, inspired by the July Revolution of 1830 in France, which saw King Charles X ousted. He was replaced by Louis Philippe, who was importantly a constitutional monarch, which gave hope that the same could be achieved
soon
in Italy. The revolts in Italy were all yet again crushed by the Austrian army, and many of the notable liberal revolutionaries fled to France, including a certain Giuseppe Mazzini.
Totally never heard of him.
Mazzini was a national.
He was more radical than most since he wanted Italy to be a republic. Oh damn. Whoa, getting crazy there, Mazzini. Better watch out. Mazzini was an idealist who refused to compromise. Oh, that always works great in politics.
And believed that Italy was destined to be unified and dominate the continent. He formed a secret society, Young Italy, to pursue this goal and would soon be joined by another man, Giuseppe Garibaldi. Young Italy, which was based in France, tried to foment revolution across Italy but had no success. So there were many barriers to unification and the nationalist cause. The states within the Italian peninsula and even individual cities had fierce rivalries with each other.
Torino, more like Borino. Got him.
And did not see themselves as one and the same people. This isn't to say that there was no sense of Italianness. The people in Italy knew very well of the legacies of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance, and they near universally despised Austrian interference. The 1840s saw an uptick in nationalist sentiment across Italy for numerous reasons. Few of these nationalists could agree on what they wanted though, except for less Austria. Mazzini wanted Italy to be a unified modern republic. A priest and an important thinker, Vincenzo Gioberti, wanted Italy to be a confederation led by the Pope, like some discount Holy Roman Empire. Another, called Massimo d'Azeglio, the Prime Minister of Piedmont-Sardinia, wanted Italy to be a moderate monarchy under Piedmontese leadership. In 1846, Pope Gregory XVI kicked the bucket and was replaced by Pope Pius IX, much to the excitement of the liberals since he was somewhat sympathetic to them. The revolution spread across Europe and importantly to Austria, which weakened its grip on Italy. This in turn led to uprisings in Milan and Venice who wanted their independence. Side note, it was during this time that the Italian tricolour started to be used as a symbol of a united Italy. In Piedmont, the revolutionaries actually made some headway. King Charles Albert conceded to the revolutionaries' demands and issued a constitution. He also declared his support for the rebels in Austrian lands and hastily marched his army across the border. The Austrians, led by Marshal Radetzky, at first retreated. It wasn't long though before they returned and defeated the Piedmontese at Custoza, and Charles Albert was forced to sign an armistice. In the rest of Italy, the revolutions were faltering. In Rome, Pius IX was forced to flee and Mazzini took over, declaring the Republic of Rome in 1849.
Dio e popolo.
The heart of the Catholic world falling to revolutionaries was a bit of a shock to those in France, which was a republic.
Help.
Again. Here, its president, Louis I'm not the emperor yet Napoleon, decided to intervene militarily to restore the Pope. It wasn't long before the French had seized the city, forcing the rebels to flee. Importantly, Garibaldi took refuge in San Marino, the relevance of which will become clear shortly. In Piedmont, Charles Albert had restarted the war with Austria. It was mostly to stop unrest at home, but to put it mildly, it went terribly. After a series of defeats, Charles Albert abdicated and was succeeded by Victor Emanuel II, who paid heavily for a peace treaty. So by 1850, very little had changed, since most of the Italian states refused to honour the reforms from the 1848 revolutions. There were some differences. Lombardy, Venetia found themselves without any local autonomy. Rome was basically occupied by French troops, and Piedmont Sardinia had a new flag and kept its fancy new constitution. This constitution gave Victor Emanuel a great deal of power, and as a result, a difficult relationship with his prime minister, who in 1852 was a man called Camillo Benso, the Count of Cavour. Cavour was a model.
He wanted to model Piedmont Sardinia on Britain. His policies made Piedmont much richer, especially when compared to southern Italy.
A pragmatist and a proponent of free trade. He wanted to model Piedmont after Britain, slowly introducing change and avoiding a repeat of the previous decade's revolutionary turmoil. Cavour's policies made Piedmont quite a bit richer and thus able to pursue a more ambitious foreign policy. And by ambitious, I mean aggressive. Piedmont was in a unique position since it acted as a buffer state between France and Austria, meaning that neither could take territory from it lest they threaten the other. This allowed Cavour to make alliances with other great European powers against Austria with near impunity.
Soon.
The first attempt at this came about in 1853 with the outbreak of the Crimean War. Cavour joined the war because he wanted a seat at the peace negotiations to secure British and French help with expanding Piedmont and kicking Austria out of Italy. Britain wanted nothing to do with it, leaving Cavour with France under Louis I'm now an emperor just like my uncle Napoleon III. Napoleon had previously been a member of the Carbonari and so was open to helping, but only so far as the Papal States remain unharmed and that Piedmont remain under French guidance. The details were agreed in 1858, and the next year an uprising was staged in Modena, which Piedmont quickly came to the aid of. The Austrians were quick to intervene, the French sided with Piedmont, and Garibaldi was given command of some volunteers and launched a fierce guerrilla campaign against the Austrians. Some more states rose up in rebellion and formed an alliance against Austria called the United Provinces of Central Italy, thus widening the war. This is why this war is referred to as the Second War of Italian Independence, 1848 being the first. The two major battles in this were Magenta, which was a French victory, and Solferino, which was a combined Franco-Piedmontese victory. Incidentally,
France provided the majority of the troops for the battle. The Austrians were directly commanded by Emperor Franz Joseph.
The Battle of Solferino, which involved over 250,000 men, was so bloody that it led to the foundation of the International Red Cross. Napoleon was worried about Prussian intervention and so made peace with Austria without telling Piedmont, which led to Cavour resigning in a rage. The peace gained Lombardy for Piedmont, who in turn gave Savoy and Nice to France. The United Provinces of Central Italy were pretty riotous at this point in time, and its leaders, fearing a complete breakdown of society, sought union with Piedmont. In 1860 they were annexed into the kingdom, importantly taking some papal territory with them. In the end, nobody was really happy. The French were upset because the Pope, whom Napoleon had pledged to protect, had lost territory.
You promised.
The Austrians were unhappy for obvious reasons, and the Piedmontese were dissatisfied because they wanted Venice. So in 1859 an uprising kicked off in Sicily. Again, Garibaldi saw this as an opportunity and so launched what is known as the Expedition of the Thousand in 1860. With only 1,000 men, Garibaldi conquered Sicily before moving on to Naples against the orders of Cavour, who was Prime Minister again. A few months later, Garibaldi had taken Naples, and after this, Piedmont invaded the Papal States but not Rome itself and conquered all of this territory, except for the tiny state of San Marino, which maintained its independence because when Garibaldi had fled there earlier, it was agreed that San Marino wouldn't be incorporated into any larger Italian state. Garibaldi kept this promise by pressuring Cavour not to annex it. In late 1860, a referendum was held in the south on unification with Piedmont, which the people backed overwhelmingly. Soon after, Garibaldi met Victor Emanuel at Teano, here, and handed him control over Naples. This was a big deal since Garibaldi was a Republican and was thus setting aside his dislike for monarchy for the purposes of unifying Italy, which says a lot about him. On March the 17th, 1861, the Kingdom of Italy was proclaimed with King Victor Emmanuel II as its first king and with Florence as its capital. Cavour and Victor Emmanuel had the difficult task of integrating the rest of the kingdom, and this caused many
We have made Italy. Now we must make Italians.
issues, one being that southern
This process is often referred to as Piedmontization. It's widened the wealth gap between the north and the south. Oh, that's always lovely when the wealth gap widens between areas. Totally doesn't cause issues.
manufacturing couldn't compete with the more industrialised north, and thus it was devastated. Furthermore, those in the south had to now help pay off Piedmont's debts from its wars with Austria. Taxes rose substantially and the government cracked down fiercely on any dissent. The government also had bad relations with the church, who weren't happy that they'd
No heaven for you.
Lost a lot of authority and that the Pope had also lost territory. To make matters worse, the Brigands' War broke out in 1861, which saw brigands, i.e. bandits, roaming the south for 4 years. As a result of the turmoil, many turned to revolutionaries such as Garibaldi, who led a few minor revolts, but all of them failed. Garibaldi wasn't punished because he was basically a celebrity at this point and was well loved across much of Europe and North America. Garibaldi's marches against his own government wouldn't be his last fight though, since in 1866 the Brothers' War between Austria and Prussia broke out. Italy still didn't include either Venice or Rome, and this was something Victor Emmanuel wanted to change. An agreement was reached with Prussia that in return for Italian help in the war, they would both seek Venetia for Italy. Long story short, Italy performed poorly, but Prussia performed well, and so Austria lost Venice to France because they didn't want to give territory to those who they felt didn't deserve it. France then gave it to Italy, thus making all of that a waste of time. It wasn't long before another major European war broke out that Italy could use to its advantage, the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. Napoleon had to withdraw the French troops in Rome to fight the Prussians, which meant that it was now an easy target. It wasn't long before the walls of Rome had been breached and Rome itself conquered. The Pope was offered a bunch of concessions and an annual allowance.
Here's some money. No. Go away.
To win his approval, but he refused. His approval didn't matter though, since Italy was happening either way. In 1871, Rome was, after much arguing, declared the new capital of Italy. This new kingdom of Italy was now a rising power on the world stage, whose influence would extend across Europe, greatly changing the course of its history forevermore. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
And that was the 10-minute history. The Unification of Italy, a short documentary by History Matters. This one was good. They always, again, it's pretty much just like saying the same thing over and over. They always do a great job with these videos. It did feel actually a little weak here towards the end, where it felt like they were definitely speeding things up to get to the final unification of Italy here. But that's okay, you know. Covering the unification of an entire country is complicated, and it's impressive to even get it within 10 minutes, and they did a very good job. I feel though that the I don't think they got as much subtleties or complexities in this 10-minute history as what I feel like we've come to expect from them. It felt like they were unable to fit as much as they usually do in this one within 10 minutes, because there was just so much happening that needed to be discussed to tell the story of the unification of Italy. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.